I guess welcome back, everybody, to another episode of D2C Diaries after a brief 2-week hiatus. I bet that felt long. I bet that felt long for all of our regulars.
It looked like a holiday from maybe the outside, but there's been a lot going on behind the scenes, isn't there?
Yeah, we've done a lot. So obviously had Black Friday, which I want to touch on. We had our all hands day, so we got 85 people in London for a day on Black Friday. And then we decided to cram 2 Christmas parties in back to back in 2 different cities within 7 days after that. So there's a lot. Felt very drained when it came to the end of that 2-week period, but it was very exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think scheduling, some scheduling optimization needed next year, because we had the Black Friday social, which was on Black Friday, where we brought all 4 of our agencies together in one room, which was super exciting. You then had the Soar one on the following Thursday
in Leeds,
and then came back to London for the Hamby one on the Friday
and interviews in person. Yeah, it was a lot, but it was great. It was exciting. It's always exciting to get people in a room together at that scale. Intimidating in some ways, but I think it was really good. And obviously had a massive Black Friday, so wanted to start there.
Yeah,
to recap some of the numbers. So yeah, November as an agency, we spent nearly $40 million on Meta, which was up 185% on last year, which is pretty meaty year-on-year growth. How many ads did we make?
God, over the period, at least 4,000 over November. But I think obviously a lot of that Black Friday creative had started in October as well, so probably closer to like 6,000.
Yeah, I feel like we could do a whole episode on like what drove success over Black Friday, but I really think it's a lot of the fundamental basics. So strong offer that's very simple. The brands that had done the hard work for the year, so like done a lot of demand generation, had built a lot of awareness and weren't trying to fix that problem too close to the period. Then obviously just the right approach to creative.
Yeah. The one thing I saw is, there was a lot almost of confusion of, I guess, changing offer quite frequently. So like really knowing your offers before the period and avoiding changing things too much is important.
Yeah, I think you need to use the prior 3 quarters to test and learn from that perspective. And it's easy when you're really close to e-commerce and you're spending all of your time online to think that your offer is simple, not remembering that, especially if you sell to older consumers, that many of them find it difficult to use the internet, never mind understand the 3-tiered discount at 4 different price points that unlock these benefits. It's like simple works. And I think we just saw that again, but yeah, it was huge. Got some data from Meta the day before Black Friday. I think we're going to tip $100 million on spend this year in the UK, which for this market is big. It's a lot of volume. Excited to see where we get to next year.
Yeah, we can do. I'm banking it for probably around August next year, but I've got a whole document about creative learnings and best performers and stuff that really worked during the period. But I just feel like if we do that now, like it's just, 1, not going to be relevant to anyone. No one's, but 2, it will be forgotten by the time we actually get around to next Black Friday.
Yeah, I think one thing is just cohorting out those consumers who bought over this period and doing a bit of an analysis. Like now you've got Christmas period's a good time to do that, right? How did they differ from the rest of the year? So I feel like no one thinks about that enough and then leaves it until like September and then scrambles to think about how our messaging should look. So yeah, we can do a bigger episode. Come back in August 2026 for that one. Christmas is coming, right?
Yeah.
Have you done any shopping?
Pretty much there. I think a few last minute bits to get on the weekend. Somehow bought a dog with about 4 days of deciding to actually getting a dog.
Mental.
Don't blame me, blame Liv. But yeah, I think the decision had been made on Saturday and we went to visit the dog yesterday and I ended up putting a deposit down.
Mental. I can't. Well, let's have him on.
Yeah,
on the episode as a guest.
We need a new mascot. So.
We do. Lenny, is he?
Lenny, yeah.
Cute.
I wanted to call him Chad for Chad scale, but
Chihuahua. I can see you with the Chihuahua. It fits with your image.
It wouldn't have been my choice. I wanted a Rottweiler. She wanted a Chihuahua. So obviously the way that it worked was we got a Chihuahua with Rottweiler colours, which wouldn't have been my choice, but...
You're so compromising.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous that you've done your Christmas shopping because I've got to...
You done any of it?
I've done minor bits. I've got pretty much the whole of it to do. So.
More strategic this year. Got a fair amount during Black Friday.
I'm just going to get Surrey toothbrushes for everyone.
It's the safe bet, isn't it? It's like, yes, there's a V2 out.
Yeah. You're all getting a Surrey toothbrush.
Yeah, you all got one last year, but there's the upgrade now.
Hell of an upgrade. I wanted to use this episode to talk part reflective, part forward looking. So going to look back at 2025. It's been a crazy year for us. It's been an exciting year for our brands, and want to do a bit of a reflective episode there. But prior to doing that, I wanted to dive into some tactics in relation to Q5. We've done a KTR head of performance creative, put together a really strong and exciting training session for our creative strategy team a few weeks back. And I think any brand owners or operators that haven't switched off and are still spending time with us just before Christmas, firstly, what are you doing? Secondly, hopefully we can give you some insights to take forward and execute to maximize Q5. I'm going to let Loukas talk tactics, but I'm just going to frame what it is. So Q5 is like I almost think like Meta came up with this term, but it's like, it's the most important quarter that isn't a quarter. So it's the period between Christmas and I think like the end of the first full week of Jan. It kind of runs through that period. It's when there's that really clear mindset shift in consumers who have prior to Christmas been shopping for others and have been in that gifting mindset and have from Black Friday onwards have spent most of their income on gifts, other people, and have been thinking in that way. We see almost immediately after Christmas, Boxing Day, but definitely the 27th of December onwards, just like a complete shift in demand and consumer patterns. Obviously, we've got health and wellness, which we do a lot of work in. That starts to boom. But you've also got these mindsets around new habits, back to shopping for themselves, personal care, wellness, like I've mentioned.
New year, new me.
New year, new me. Which I think, and gift cards, people getting gift cards and income for Christmas. So you've got that change in mindset, and then you've also got this ecosystem where a lot of these enterprise brands, so think Unilevers, think P&G, dramatically reduce spend through that period. So they pull back on budgets. And that presents an opportunity, right? If you're able to execute well, I think that period from Boxing Day to Jan 1st can provide a platform for just a huge start to Jan and can really give you momentum coming out of that period in a way that those who don't take it as seriously don't benefit from. So from like a creative perspective, how are you thinking about that as a period?
Yeah, I think obviously we need to, there's a big shift in consumer behaviors and how we speak to people. And I think there's this real flash in the pan moment at the start of the year where there is a true motivation that actually doesn't really feed past the point of January, which is why it's so important. I mean, I saw a statistic, which is something like 80% of New Year's resolutions end by like the 22nd of Jan or something crazy like that.
I've never got past the teens on dry January.
A great example. So you kind of have this short period of time where you can really tap into, I guess, both the motivations, but also the pain points that have come from the period of Christmas, where naturally we are unhealthier during that period, where we can really speak to these individuals. But I think where a lot of the time brands fall short is they either go very seasonal with hype at every stage of the funnel, or they default to kind of that very default evergreen messaging. And I think that's why it's important that we kind of layer that seasonal context into more of a funnel based framework. So I guess if we're looking at that from like a top to bottom of funnel perspective. From top of funnel, naturally, we're going, we need to be going very problem solution first. And it's almost that problem solution reset from maybe some of the poor habits that we have picked up earlier in the year or over the Christmas period, say. And it's almost like leaning into that reset mindset, right? So what's not working from that previous period, how they're actually truly feeling post-holiday, what their life could look like this year if they made that change as well. So it's that idea of like post-holiday reset, problem solution driven frameworks that are outlining that current routine or that change of routine. And I think the way that we do that best at the top of the funnel with that problem solution first mindset is really tapping into like some of those core human desires, which I think is not something we do so much with. So with top of funnel, you need to be thinking more from the perspective of like, one human desire is like survival or extension of life. So this is where wellness brands can really lean into some of those core motivators and common resolutions around improving physical or mental health and how that kind of helps improve their life. There's also comfortable living is another one. So improving finances as well, and how that can attribute to core human desires where, cost efficiency potentially falls under that bracket as well, or a push on, say, January sales and how you can lean into some of that disposable income that you've made over the period. And another one is like connection to loved ones. So 22% actually of resolutions aim to improve or increase time spent with family. So I think whether depending on what your product is there to solve a problem for, how can we really lean into those core human desires? And I think the main one is always going to be survival or extension of life, and how that kind of taps into things like, confidence. How can we agitate failed solutions or the way that we felt in December versus January? So, leaning into things like almost like still bloated from December. Here are 3 fixes I swear by. If your routine is still chaos, start here. Here's the one reset that I'm making this year that is going to make a true impact of my life. So there are some of the things that we need to be thinking about from a top of funnel perspective. And I think the mistake that most brands that maybe use Q5 as an opportunity is they go to bottom of funnel again. So it's like that January urgency of sales, whereas really like this is an opportunity for us to double down not only on bottom of funnel, but top of funnel, because as you said, CPMs are going to be better. There's more opportunity for like incrementality and to really tap into some of those problems that people are considering.
Yeah, that sets you up for the rest of Jan when you've done that work. You've spent that money at a better CPM towards these personas that maybe were harder to reach in normal times. I think it's about being really introspective on that consumer mindset and how that maybe differs from the rest of the year at the start of, or the end of December, start of Jan. I just think it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, so for me, I'm still probably putting at least 50% towards problem and unaware creatives. The way that I would recommend doing this, because the problem that again with Q5 is like it only has a certain shelf life. So if you want to work smarter, not harder with your creative. So even though we are positioning creative in a way that it will tap into Q5 messaging, we are creating hook variations that mean that creative can live a longer shelf life if there's performance there. So that's something that to consider as well when we're driving different variations of those concepts so they can live outside of just that period. But then also like if we're going 50% towards that top of funnel, I'm still looking at like 20 to 30% within that middle of funnel section where we're doing more trust building and objection handling, which I think is important within health and wellness, because this is where they're all coming in to compete with one another. So showing those real transformations, I thought this would work, but it didn't. And here's what I used instead. Really tapping into, those objections that people are maybe bringing to the surface more through the ad comments, through the reviews and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's loads of creative ways to do like entertaining messaging that's not too problem led, that works from upper funnel. So like, here's one New Year's resolution that stuck last year, and then here's all the benefits that I got from it. I also think I saw a few brands last year doing like really strong concepts around, it started with a so-and-so bought this gift for me.
Yeah.
And then I think that's naturally appeals to a slightly broader audience from like a hook and a messaging perspective. And then it's just about, can you do the storytelling and art? Can you move that curiosity loop to your product?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think there's loads of opportunity.
And then from I think bottom of funnel during this period, like you have to attack messaging in a slightly different way. So, you've got offers like January reset offers, limited launch bundles, kickstart your year right, don't wait till February, starting now. And it's rather than just saying, say 20% off, it's, tying that into the motivators of this new year, new me. So like save 20% on your new morning routine, or save 20% on to support desired outcome. So we need to like adapt the messaging and the way that we're positioning those offers during that period as well.
Yeah. And I think it's the same with new products, like new product launches. There's you can engineer a position around that. But yeah, I think brands just, you want to take advantage of that period. I think it's low cost, loads of ways to tap into new personas and loads of ways to set yourself up for.
Exactly. Like the funnel doesn't need to change. It's just the context of how you're using that funnel. And we're leaning more towards outcome driven frameworks as well, which obviously will align more to wellness.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, jumping into a bit of like a reflective piece, I wanted to just arc back to January and like what was actually happening in Jan, because I always think it's interesting. You go through a full year and you're like, we obviously did this at the Black Friday Day, you kind of reflect and you see how much has changed, how much you've achieved. But I was just pulling together a few top line things from D2C that was happening in January 2025, just to recap. So TikTok was getting banned, which I think definitely didn't happen in the end. Now everyone's using Shop and it's booming. I think it's going to do 70 billion this year in the US. Everyone was calling AppLovin a fraud. Thought they were all engineering their results to take too much credit. Soar 1 had just launched.
Which, do you remember when that first video came out of showing an output from Soar 1, like that blew everyone's mind, didn't it? And if you think how far it's come since that point, and how, I guess in hindsight, bad Soar 1 was in comparison to where we are with like VO 3.5, Soar 2, etc. It's pretty mad.
Yeah, it's mental in 1 year. DeepSeek launched, which I actually forgot about that was even a thing, but everyone got very scared of China for a bit when that came out. We rebuilt our org in Jan to focus on creator-led growth off the back of Andromeda, which feels crazy to see where we're at now in terms of output. And we recorded our 16th episode of the podcast. I think now we're on like mid-70s.
Yeah.
Actually can't remember.
100 soon come.
Yeah, not far off that 100th episode. So I think there's been a lot that's happened in that period. I wanted to touch on like lessons or learnings. And what do you think your biggest learnings, plural, have been this year?
It's something we've spoken about a bit, but I guess from like a team development perspective, candor is definitely a massive one. And I think that's, being able to give honest, empathetic feedback little and often. So like this idea of going from waiting to give someone feedback until their next review, or giving that feedback to the manager who gives it to that individual directly, and it creating this spider web of confusion where that person isn't able to action that feedback instantaneously. Making that change to like, if I'm ever on a call, whether it's my direct report or not, if I see something, I will speak to them straight away after that call to give that feedback little and often, rather than what a lot of organizations do. They'll wait till these big review dates to give feedback that they could have given much sooner, and that person could have been improving in that area much sooner. And by making that change and by going into those, whether it's interactions, calls, like reviewing work, with that intention of giving feedback little and often, I've just seen the team grow and improve so much more. And I don't mean me just giving that feedback, but us creating a culture where that is okay, upwards, downwards, sideways, I think has really helped improve standards, but mean that people can react much quicker and optimize themselves much better.
Yeah, I hadn't actually written down anything from like a management people perspective, but I think that's where we as a business have become that's where we've made the most progress, I think, if we look at the last 12 months in terms of how we approach it, how we professionalize it, getting clearer on what our culture and approach to people looks like. I also think when looking at like e-commerce businesses, every business is a people business, fundamentally. I think just agencies, the constraint in agencies becomes people a lot earlier than it does in an e-com brand's journey. Some brands, we know a few, you can get to like nearly 9 figures without having to really have people figured out to really dialed in, basically. But I think if it's also, when I look at the brands that we work with that have amazing products that have hit plateaus at certain points, it's almost always because they've not become good enough at people operations, which is quite boring relative to the more sexy things of growth, marketing, content, retention, product. I think that's something that everybody like who's in a brand role, I think it's just a really good thing to try and become better at as you go into 2026. Definitely something that we are continuing to do. Like, we're not resting on our laurels there, but yeah, definitely had been a big driver.
Well, it's that I forgot who said it, but there was a quote I heard on a podcast the other day, and it was like, if you're the most valuable part of your business, then your business has no value. And it just, if that makes sense, because it essentially is saying that if you hold too much weight and value within your organization, then there's not enough time and attention being spent on the people within your business being the value creation mechanism.
That was My First Million, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was the I've also listened to that podcast, which is why I was thinking. Yeah, I think it's 100% true. And I think it's a hard skill to learn. I think we've talked about it in a few other episodes, but there's a lot of amazing content online around people, management, growth, and it's part introspective and really sitting down and thinking about what you want your organization to look, feel, sound, and be. I feel like your organization is your culture. Now, that is introspective. You can define that, but then it's also part external, like going and learning and being very intentional in developing those skills.
Yeah, definitely. I would say on a personal level as well, like a start of the year last year, I was too reactive in getting into very busy work, and as a result didn't have time for focusing on what really mattered, prioritization, bigger objectives. And I think I have become much better at being I didn't do any forward planning for a start. So now, without fail, on a Sunday or Friday afternoon, I will plan my whole next week, because I think if you go into the next week and you haven't planned how you're going to be spending your time and what you're going to be prioritizing your time on, you're essentially borrowing used time from later in that week. So that has been a big shift for me, actually sitting down and bucketing. So I've got a system that I use on Notion where I bucket things into different priorities. So management, innovation, product, and training, team and training. So I will essentially build out my objectives or my priorities into that system with a nice framework, impact, confidence, and ease, and then also give it a priority rating. And then from that, I will essentially, and this isn't anything revolutionary, I know a lot of people that do this already, but I will then time block my calendar the next week, from highest priority to lowest. And obviously you're not necessarily going to get through everything on that list even in the next week. But by doing that, it means that you become more obsessed with prioritizing your time and not allowing other things to slip into that time, which has been massive for me and improved my output and impact as a result of that. So yeah, that was like a big thing for me that helped being a founder or entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've just been redesigning my approach to that for next year. Because it's hard as well. It's hard to, when you've gone, I think when you've come from building a business and you've been very operational on the tools, doing the work, it feels less tangible to work on things that have a longer payback period. And I mean payback almost from like a dopamigenic perspective. It's like, it feels good to be in an ad account and have an impact on clients, but thinking about strategy for next 2 years is more important, but is the rewards circuit and system there is very different. I think it's a different way of operating, and it's quite a hard shift to go through. You have to be very intentional with it, like you said.
There was an interesting thing that Layla Hormozi said, and it's almost like there's always going to be fires that need to be put out. Yeah, it's like you have to label those fires either a forest fire, which is like it is a priority now, or it's going to fuck the whole business, or a bin fire, which is like it's contained. Yes, there's a fire there, but it's not going to destroy the business. And it's okay to sometimes leave fires burning because there are other things that you need to prioritize.
100%. I think that also plays into like biggest learnings is that we've talked about focus and doing less better. I don't want to hash that again, but I think it's important. I think it's been trying to pull that more forward into, again, for next year, saying no more often, and subtract rather than add for like Jan, like looking at next year. That's a big thing for me, is like not looking at more, looking at less, and how that translates into business and personal. Because I think that will massively help both. I think that's something we've done very well this year. I encourage everyone to have a look at.
Yeah, another one that final one that I think it has really caused disruption previously in our business. Obviously, as you know, when you're scaling and things are going well, like, things do break, and you need to rebuild systems, processes. I think there's a quote where like almost every 15 people, you have to almost rebuild the entire system or way of working. And we've definitely had that. And I think we've approached process optimization and rollout in the wrong way. And it made me realize that like if every person that is impacted by process change, it's going to change the way that they work day to day and disrupt their workflow. So it's really important that you get true buy-in before changing a process. And we've done that wrong in the past. And again, Alex Hormozi says something of like document, demonstrate, duplicate. So before you change anything, document it, demonstrate it to the team, and then get them to demonstrate it to you when you can then give feedback. But almost what comes before that is actually getting them bought into the why of what we're trying to change to help them and ensure that they come through that along on that journey with you. And as a result of that, there's going to be a much smoother transitional period to kind of rolling out a new process. And the one I think about, which was just an absolute disaster, just because we just did it so suddenly, was moving from motion to lens.
Yeah, it was a disaster. We got there in the end, and it was a long-term beneficial, but yeah, that's where we learned the lesson. I'm glad we learned the lesson on that, because it's materially still quite a small process in the grand scheme of process.
Yeah.
But it was good to learn that lesson. I remembered what I couldn't remember earlier. I think one thing that has been like abundantly clear to me this year is like how important urgency is, how important injecting urgency into a business is as a founder. And it's a balance, because you want to challenge people on timelines, but in the right way, because a lot of the time you can get things done in a lot short. You can get more done in the time you have if you make things a priority. And I think that's something that see some businesses just operating just to such in a way that just in a completely opposite of that. Like, it just takes so long to make decisions. And I think one of the things that's really helped us is just that ability to have high conviction about a few big, high conviction about a small number of big decisions, and then go very quick on making them happen.
I think that's one thing I think you're just really good at, is like you will always question how long something needs to take and why. It's that question, isn't it? Hypothetically, how do we do this in half the time? But I think it's
a good mental model, right?
It's a really
the
good
answer can be
model.
like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
If it's impossible, it's impossible. But it's like, can we spend more money? Can we pull more people in? Can we do something fundamentally different to achieve the same outcome? Is a good thing to think through.
Yeah, and it's like, you never normally question that. You never question, okay, but how, if we had to get this done in half of the time, how would we actually do that? Because usually it's more attainable than you think it is.
Yeah, I think I was speaking to Matt Kelly about product, and he said the same. It's like, you look at the cycle to launch new products in D2C, and it takes so long. It's like, it fundamentally it doesn't need to take that long. Like, there's ways to make things move faster. I think that's just something to want to keep that. It's really hard that we tried to codify our strategy. What is our strategy as a business? And I think the world that we operate in D2C, it's the ability to pivot and be adaptable and move quickly when we need to.
Yeah.
But it's hard to retain that as you become bigger and bigger. It's something we need to be intentional with. Moving on to awards.
It's the D2C Diaries Awards.
Wow. I didn't know that was coming, as you can probably tell.
We went to do this last year, but then we just realized it was February and kind of missed the boat. But we'd like to do a bit of an awards, going through a few different categories, both coming with different, our winners, I guess, for each of these categories, and breaking down those reasons. Going into some more personal based stuff like favorite books, podcasts, but then also going into some D2C specific categories as well. So should we get kicked off with the first one?
Yeah, let's start with the two personal ones, because I think it's an interesting topic. But best book. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do. And I think this is probably quite a cliche, but it took me until this year to read this book. But I just thought, I love tangible books that I can just execute on straight away. And like, I'm at every opportunity making notes on my phone about like, hey, how can I apply that to my life? And that book was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
It's a good read. It's also a meaty book.
It's big.
It takes a while to get through. It's got some girth to it. I think I read that probably like 5 years ago. I think I should probably revisit it, because I also think the way I applied it then would be fundamentally different to how I apply it now.
Yeah.
I do think some books are a reread as well.
100%.
That's a reread. Atomic Habits, I always think, is a reread. Is it Neville Almanac? That's
I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's a reread.
Yeah.
But anyway, strong recommendation. Mine was Poor Charlie's Almanac.
I've started that.
It's
another meaty one.
Yeah, that's another good one. Stripe Press. The Stripe have like a publishing arm called Stripe Press, and they're just putting out banger after banger. They put out a really good AI book, but Charlie's Almanac is Charlie Munger, all of his speeches in a book. Incredible thinker. Amazing read. Everyone should give that a go.
What would you say, not to put you on the spot, but is your like biggest takeaway that you have already or will be applying to your life from that book? Because I know there's a lot of mental models, frameworks.
Two things. One, the big thing he pushes is this multidisciplinarian approach to analytics. So that's how he analyzes the world. He doesn't look at, you're taught in schools to put things in boxes. You're either physics, you're economist, you're a psychologist. His mental model for assessing investment opportunities is like picking certain theories or mental models from each of those fields and analyzing whatever it is he's trying to analyze through that lens. I think that's just a really contrarian and powerful approach to thinking. It's a lot more complete. I think it challenges a lot of like your beliefs. So try to apply more of that and try to become more rounded in terms of content, because you put, like, if the last few years I've spent a lot of time consuming D2C content, now I'm trying to spend more time on like agency growth. But then even beyond business, it's like, it's good to have that more well-rounded perspective. So that, and then I also just think he's an amazing oral communicator. He's an amazing storyteller. And I think storytelling is something that I want to become better at, because I think it's a really important part of marketing and leading. But it's not really a muscle that I've flexed or built.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned this year, just the power of storytelling and communication.
Yeah,
because we view it through the lens of marketing, but as you say, it's such an important weapon almost to use in every part of your life, whether that's relationship building, as you say, leadership and motivating others. It's so powerful and so important.
Yeah, and I think it's really, yeah, I just think it can build a more of a narrative around whatever it is you're doing. Yeah, I just think it's great. I think it's a good skill. So that's a big thing.
Cool.
Podcast.
Best podcast. Do you want to go first for this one?
Yeah, I'll go first. I know you liked this one as well, so maybe I stole it from you. But Brad Jacobs on the David Senna. Is it Senna? Senna.
Yeah.
He only launched his podcast. He's probably only done about 10 to 12 episodes. I actually think every episode he's done is an absolute banger. He's done Dyson, Brad Jacobs, Michael Ovitz, who's has a really good book as well. But Brad Jacobs basically buys billion-dollar companies and makes them more valuable, and again, I just found some of his approaches to people, thinking about business. I find him he makes really complex things really simple. It's really easy to listen to. And he's got loads of really good anecdotes, loads of context. So I found it, really, really interesting and enjoyable listen.
Yeah, it was a great listen. Again, very actionable podcast. And he's just it seems like a nice guy.
Just
very humble.
Normal.
Yeah. For someone who's helped build double-digit billion-dollar companies.
Yeah. I just think that's mental, buying a billion-dollar company and having conviction of making it 3 to 5 times more valuable is just crazy. And a lot of what he talks about is quite simple. It's it's incentives, pricing, management, and yeah, it's just really, really good.
Yeah, exactly. Mine would actually be, and to be fair, that Brad Jacobs one was up there for sure, but the Vin Gardy Diary of a CEO episode, who's a communication and public speaking expert. We've actually just bought his course for the team. And I think, it just opened my eyes to actually how you think communication and storytelling is something that either just comes naturally to you or not, but he's a great example of someone who has almost strategized the layers required to become a great communicator, and how you can use that to influence others, how you can use that to build trust. And I just thought it was incredibly actionable and something that I learned a lot from personally. He breaks down the different layers essentially of communication and how you can improve them: melody, rhythm, tonality, pause, mood. These are all things that, almost relate to music. And I love how he created this correlation from how we speak as humans and almost how we play instruments, which is really, really interesting. So I would definitely give that a listen if you haven't.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think communication is another layer of personal brand, really. And you think of personal brand only in a context of being a founder and building a personal brand, but I think everybody has a personal brand in a way. I think Andrew Huberman does another really good podcast on communication. I think it's a big focus for us into next year, helping the team and upskilling the team on some of those softer skills. Especially in a client facing role, how you present, how you communicate on calls is really important. And I also think it's something that a lot of the younger generations struggle with, the COVID generations, because they've not had to do it. They've not had to build those relationships.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Cool. Next one, the New Kid on the Block Awards. So this is a newer brand that has really created disruption in the D2C space this year? And I think there is only really one answer, isn't there?
There is. We've done a podcast about them. We've done a lead magnet about them. Dan from Heights mentions them on the next episode. It is
IM8.
Pause for dramatic effect there.
I wasn't expecting you to come back to me, to be honest.
We'll put the lead magnet down below. Have a look at the other episode if you haven't. But IM8's growth, execution has just been incredible, right? You look at a guy on Twitter, maybe I can find the thread and put it up here, that shows their financial journey from, they've executed the playbook perfectly, both from a marketing perspective, but also from a P&L perspective. They've gone from huge burn rate to profitable.
Yeah.
And the valuation has just gone crazy off the back of that. We've actually got the founder coming on in January, Danny. Really excited to have him on the pod, and we can dive deep into that journey, I think, on that episode. So we won't go too much further for now. D2C Dominator of the Year. It's quite a powerful title, that, isn't it? What brand has been everywhere all the time? So beyond just like the LinkedIn and Twitter, like what brand has occupied a lot of mind share, I guess? What would your ones be there?
I feel like Road is an obvious one. I think just not, and I think not, I'm looking at this not only from the perspective of how well they've executed from a marketing perspective, but I think even from like a product innovation perspective as well, they've almost created these cultural shifts in the way that people use products, like even down to the lip balm
phone case,
and just how genius a product like that is patented, something like that, and how something like that almost created this ripple effect and share of voice within kind of women and the millennials and Gen Zs, and how they've almost, as a result, driven the marketing through organic by sharing that. I think it's just, it's a great brand, and just the growth and the valuation now of it it's an absolute beast, and obviously a unicorn.
Yeah, I think the greatest compliment, not that it needs compliments from me, I'm not in a position to give it a compliment, is that I actually have seen loads of the products and know what they are. Like, I just am so far away from the consumer, and I've seen so much of their marketing and content. I just think they've executed really well. I think that product example's powerful because it's thinking of product from a social content lens, which I think is really different. I'm sure we'll see more of that into next year.
I just think as well, it's like from a the amount we've all been on the tube and just seen the case and the lip balm, and it's just everywhere. It just markets itself, doesn't it? It's just eye-catching.
The two for me, well, actually I put 3 down, which is cheating, but I put Dr. Squatch and Wild because I feel like Dr. Squatch is always everywhere. We're going to mention him again in a few questions time, but the obviously got a huge exit. Wild obviously got a huge exit as well. And I just feel like obviously kudos to them to get into that point, the end goal that so many chase.
Yeah.
And I also put Hims and Hers because I feel like they're like the health and wellness feels like the fastest growing category. And they are like the top of that, right? And their valuation, the brands, the journey they've been on has been crazy. And I feel like they've really gone from what looked to be a pretty challenging situation to just crazy growth this year. So 3, but those would be my 3.
Yeah, I think this year especially, Dr. Squatch have really broken into the UK market as well. I mean, they were known, but I think very big in the US, weren't they? But I think it's it's just become a massive global brand now, which is pretty wild for like a bar of soap essentially.
Yeah, it's crazy. Most used D2C product this year, personally.
Yeah.
So what have you loved and used the most?
I don't know if it's cheating because obviously you have to use this product every single day, twice a day, but the Suri toothbrush.
I do think that is cheating.
Well, yeah, it's hard. I'd say a product that not throughout the whole year, but in terms of like a functional beverage that I actually just love because it was something that I really wanted to like but didn't, and now it's made it accessible and something that I can enjoy every day is matcha fuel. So I just think like matcha was something I never enjoyed, but I did a lot of research into the benefits of matcha and wanted to find other ways to consume caffeine outside of just coffee, essentially. And I just think it's a great product that I really, really love. And the second one is Act London. I think it's one of the best products I've ever used for solving exactly what it says on the tin from a problem solution perspective, which is obviously like a balm that you apply to your armpits instead of a deodorant.
Yeah, I think they're booming right now, and they're like a one to watch for next year as well. I think they're just going to explode in terms of growth in 2026.
What about you?
I hadn't thought about the beverages, and I'm a beverage man, and I've become trying to get a beverage fridge for Black Friday Cyber Monday that like got shut down big time.
You love a Dash water.
Dash is top of the list. That in terms of product I've consumed the most, I'm on that 48 can subscription every month.
48.
Sometimes I'll have like 4 or 5 a day. I haven't found anything that says that's bad for you yet, but maybe it is. Someone maybe could educate me in the comments. Dash water, kind of like a Neutronic every now and then as well. But in terms of like Act as well, I use that. In terms of like daily consumption, really been enjoying Bionic, the custom supplement brand where you can send in bloods and you can get it customized to those bloods. Told loads of people about it. Feel like it's doing something. Maybe it's placebo. Who knows? So I think, yeah, those would be mine. I think those that I've mentioned.
Nice. Yeah, Bionic is a super interesting brand, isn't it? I think, just the bespoke nature of the product and how, I mean, one thing that I learned through, we did a bit of work with Bionic and through, I guess, the research is that so many products so many supplements that you consume, you don't necessarily need and are just wasted or the absorption is terrible. So it actually isn't having the impact that you think it's going to have. And I think that's the problem that it solves, right?
Yeah, it's really tough to dry scoop though. It's really tough. It's really not enjoyable.
Kind of like it's patented, isn't it? But it's almost like grains of sand.
Yeah, and it just doesn't really dissolve. So it's like you drink it and it's not that enjoyable to drink. And I'm like, I'd rather just get it out of the way. But then four scoops is a lot. Yeah, so I think latecomer actually, which I didn't put on here, but have been eating a lot of it over the last few months, is cereal granola. Not a cereal man. I'm not really a cereal man. I'm a granola fan though.
You a breakfast man?
Yeah. Yeah. I like my Greek yogurt.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Bit of granola on the top. Yeah, so that's a latecomer for me.
Nice.
Moving on. Most viral D2C campaign.
Do you want to go first?
I can do. I think it's Dr. Squatch again for me because Sydney Sweeney, I feel like that went mega viral. I feel like she's had a big year in terms of viral moments. She's going to get another mention shortly. But yeah, I feel like that went everywhere. And yeah, kind of just blew up. What were yours?
For me, from a purely execution and strategy perspective, it's the Hexclad Super Bowl ad, which I just think is a great episode on marketing operators where they talk through the whole strategy. But I just think the way they had executed it very differently to like your standard TVC brand first Super Bowl commercial was truly really, really interesting. So they'd almost found that intersection between brand and direct response, which I thought that they executed really, really well. So I think, their goals were like from a obviously brand equity perspective, if you're going to spend 8 mil, 10 mil on a Super Bowl ad, that's going to be a big part of it. But from a performance marketing perspective, driving real site traffic, conversions and revenue, and also cultural participation and how they created this cultural wave through the campaign that kind of broke into omni-channel and organic TikTok and other areas, I thought was super interesting. So essentially it was titled The Unidentified Frying Object. Bet they were happy when they came up with that one in the creative room. But it was a Gordon Ramsay was a 60-second spot. And it was around this idea of, you know, this new kind of crazy out of space frying pan, essentially, that was discovered in Area 51. But I thought it was really interesting how they got some advice from some brand agencies that really told them to keep the ad under wraps. Like most of the time, you don't know what the Super Bowl ads are going to be, and it's become a bit of a thing, hasn't it, to see what these big iconic, you know, moments are. But they went against that, and they did like a real ramp up to build that momentum ahead of the commercial itself coming out. And one thing that they did that I just loved is, like, they were teaming up with, and they really hit like a cultural moment organically on TikTok, where there was this big cultural trend where there were TikTokers like this GeoGuessr guy who would essentially, you would give them a location, a random location in the world on Google Maps, and they'd be able to tell you within like 10 seconds where it is, just based on what they can see within the screen. And there was a picture put up of Gordon Ramsay sat on a plane, and it was actually, you could only see slightly out of the window, but you would never know it was at Area 51 where they were filming this commercial. And they approached GeoGuessr and asked him to analyze where Gordon Ramsay was and work out where he was. He did a video on it. Obviously, he's got a big social following, and it created this wave of just, why is Gordon Ramsay at Area 51, that really helps build the hype and this cohesive narrative before it actually reached the Super Bowl commercial. So yeah, just thought it was like super interesting how they created this like omni-channel campaign from what should have been just a brand TVC ad.
That was the first D2C Super Bowl commercial, I think it was. Yeah, in terms of brands that were D2C native and went Super Bowl.
There was one more. We've had this conversation. I
think
Dollar Shave Club.
Oh yeah. Be interesting to see this Super Bowl. I forget, it comes around quick in the year, doesn't it? Super Bowl. It's like, I always forget it's early on, just before WrestleMania. I always remember that from being a kid. Not that I watch wrestling now. It's just sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if any other big brands make the plunge and spend millions of pounds on it and execute it to that level, which was very strong. Couple of honourable mentions. Do you want to go with the David Protein?
Yeah, so the David Protein one, which I thought was cool, which was obviously they created COD.
Didn't really create it. They just put up. They didn't.
Yes, that is true.
COD.
They didn't manufacture COD. But
it.
for a protein bar, which it was all about this play on, like, you know, the only thing that has more protein than our protein bar is literally a piece of cod. Yeah. And they sold and shipped cod, which was branded in David Protein, which I just thought was like a really great, guerrilla marketing campaign.
And then I think you put you noted down Pure Sports watermelon stunt. I'm assuming you meant with the fuel. You mean with the fuel pump? And I think whenever they show up for a brand activation, they do it right. Excited to see what they manage to do in 2026, because I'm sure it'll be as innovative as ever. And
I love the way what Pure Sport do really well is they don't just do these big activations in physical settings. They tie it together with storytelling and how they get to the point of the activation. Like, there's a journey that they have to take to get to that point. And it's like that character, it's that classic story arc of like, there was a barrier, or there was, you know, they are the protagonist and they've got a villain that they need to overcome to get to that point. And they kind of really push that through their organic content and do a really good job of it. And I can't remember the ins and outs of it, but there was, they needed thousands of or hundreds of watermelons. They couldn't get them, and it kind of was this big story about kind of getting to that point. So yeah, I thought they do that really, really well as a brand.
100%. Most controversial moment.
Do you want to go first?
I went with Sydney Sweeney's Great Jeans ad again.
Talk us through that then in the context there.
God, she got done for basically. Did an ad for American Eagles about jeans, saying she has great jeans, and then everybody jumped on saying that was incorrect politically, I think. I just know it went mad viral and reached like TV levels of mainstream. I don't know if that's a D2C brand though, so maybe that's a rubbish answer. You did steal the one I would have put.
The Liquid Death founder, which we've spoken about on this podcast before.
Such a head loss when you actually like just unnecessary like level of head,
especially from the brand account, which it's like, you know, you've seen that happen from maybe like a personal profile before, but you know, to be driving that from the brand account and just taking over was absolutely crazy to just see this unfold.
100%. I think it's just yeah, hopefully we see less of that next year. Cautious of time, so we're going to get on to predictions. Looking forward, just to make all of the award winners, keep a lookout in the post for your awards.
Congratulations.
We'll be sending them out.
None of them could make it here today,
unfortunately. Yeah, prediction. So what's the single biggest change you expect in e-commerce 2026?
You go first here.
That's myself, my own question. The two big ones for me is I think there'll be a lot more acquisitions. I feel like we're coming out of that, and we've seen a few this year, but we're coming back into an era where I think there's less anxiety around buying consumer brands. We've seen the few I mentioned earlier for Unilever. I know that Unilever have portioned off a specific budget for acquiring brands with a real focus on health and wellness. So I think we're going to see a lot more M&A and a lot more activity in the market, which I think is exciting. It'll be interested to see who gets bought and what those moves look like. Then I think alongside that, I'm quite bullish on some of these, like I've called it tertiary channels becoming more meaningful. So we've lived in a bit of a duopoly, I feel, for the last couple of years, where everyone's still trying to really crack Meta. Everybody's spending on Google because they know they need to spend on Google. I feel like for those brands that have Meta as a foundation and are doing it well, have got the creative machine going.
That's the caveat as well.
You've got to be doing Meta well, because it's still, I still think people's spend on Meta will grow year on year. But I also think that TikTok Shop, YouTube, and AppLovin are going to start to become more meaningful for more brands. And we've seen that with TikTok Shop this year. I think there's a lot of brands that have executed on that well. I think there's a lot of headroom. I think YouTube, when you look at the amount of mind share and time that people spend on that channel, that is an opportunity. Brands haven't figured that out yet. I think it takes discipline and measurement and a different approach, but it works. And then AppLovin, when it is already working in the US, it's just I'd love them to release it in the UK.
Yeah. What are you seeing from an AppLovin perspective? Do we know timelines in terms of when that is looking to launch in the UK?
No, I speak to one of their senior leadership team. I've been speaking to them on a thread via email. I just email them like every 2 months, like when's it coming? But it's launched outside of the US, but because of the privacy laws in Western Europe and the UK, GDPR, and then EU, I don't know what it's called, maybe it's the same. That's a massive blocker. So I have no idea when it's coming. Hopefully it arrives in 2026. I saw quite a lot of big brands in the US spending a lot of money in November on that channel. It seems like relatively easy to execute on if you're already doing Meta well, which is exciting. I think any environment where we've got new channels to spend budget on for brands is exciting.
100%. Yeah. And especially when, especially with like creative diversity now on Meta. And I think it's an area that brands are struggling more and more with from an incrementality perspective, because it's now requiring more input and intention to be able to unlock new audiences because of creative similarity penalties. People are going to also be looking at where else are those opportunities to unlock new customers.
Yeah, just reach new people, I think is any new channels to do that on is a net positive for brands.
Yeah. I think from a creative perspective as well, like just in terms of how we see that shifting next year, I think it's almost like you have two types of creative that are going to dominate, like truly or get organic, native, authentic creative or ads, but then also the highly stylized, polished, clearly AI creative that is very, that has great scripting and storytelling within it. And you're going to struggle almost if you sit in the middle of it, of either of those. I think that's where I just see there being like this complete parallel where there are two just complete opposites that are going to be important to master as part of that like creative mix.
Yeah, I think the next question is like trend from 2025 that will be most important in 2026, and how does that evolve? What does that evolve into? And I was trying to think about this, but maybe in a different way. I think that trend for content volume is just going to carry on, and like the content operation that lives inside a brand becomes more and more and more valuable, but more and more and more complex. Because if you're doing Meta, you're then doing TikTok Shop requires different approach. YouTube, organic, like there's just a lot of volume requirement and complexity there. It's going to be an issue for brands to solve.
Yeah, I also think volume will continue to be the answer to some degree, obviously with diversity, but I also think there's going to be more intention from analyzing the data and understanding where does that volume need to come from. So for example, now, you have different buckets of volume, right? You have your iterations, you have your net news, you have your variations of your net news. And I think, for example, we've done some analysis of we might have been pumping huge amounts of volume to iterations, but actually from analyzing hit rate of those different categories, we're seeing that coming more from like net new variations as a result. So it's like, how are we more intentional in terms of pivoting that?
Yeah. I think that's the strategy, right? Got to be on that. Maybe final one. I think we are a bit tight for time, unless you have a follow-up. Who are your brands to watch out for in 2026?
Oh, it's a great question. I think we said the brand earlier, but Act London has to be one of the biggest for me. I just think seeing how they've penetrated the US market this year and how quickly they've grown within that market shows just how, not obviously, marketing comes into it 100%, but like how much of a great product they have, like the lifetime value and retention they have of their customers, and just the backbone that creates in their business just shows the opportunity they can continue to scale to globally. So I would say like they're definitely for me the brand that have the one to watch out for in 2025, but one I can see just reaching another level of scale in 2026.
Stole my answer.
Oh, damn it. I'll expand on that then.
I agree. I think product quality is just amazing. I haven't got another good answer to follow up with, unfortunately. Maybe we leave it there.
Yeah,
on a disappointing note. Well, yeah, thank you for watching. If you've made it to the end of this episode, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for the support throughout the year. We'll be back in January with all things creative, personas, amazing guests, tactical looks at things like hooks, forecasting. We've got a big start to the year planned. Big year. And we're going to be doing lots more masterminds, because I know through feedback that's something that you guys have really enjoyed. So that's something we're going to continue to double down on next year, and look at how we can continue innovating. But yeah, thank you so much. And please make sure you subscribe, give us a like and a comment, and we will see you next year. See you in the new year.